Thanks. That's fine, thanks.
What screen are you seeing? The presentation? Are you seeing?
I'm seeing that.
See this?
Yep.
My screen
I see that, and then I can see myself also.
Audio is live.
Testing, testing. All right, so got just a few more minutes.
Test.
Did you prepare or did yourself? Oh.
There we go.
Just about ready. Do we have anybody online?
Just
Yay. She's on there twice. Okay. I feel like that picture of the train is new. The coming out of the, no? Have they been there? No.
Oh, 1916. Not too much, actually. It's maybe a week, a year at most.
You're
Right here, right? Behind the station on that side, yeah. The highway. I spent a lot of time and energy saving a depot and light.
All right, all set? All righty. Thank you and welcome to the City of Colfax COVID Subsistence Payment Program. Tonight, we're going to review the program as well as the how to apply and provide information in an application to the city in order to become eligible to receive assistance through the program. Okay, go ahead. So just some housekeeping for those that are attending. We have restrooms located at the left side and the back. Put your cell phones on silent, please. If you have a question, please raise your hand and let's answer those questions as we go through the presentation. Applications are available here this evening or at City Hall. And then if you register, then we can also email those to you. And if you have not registered already, then please do so. That is the only way that we will send you an application. And the purpose of that is just to make sure that you're pre-qualified and that it does look like you will qualify based on income and household size. That way you aren't wasting your time filling an application and finding out you don't actually qualify. For the online participants, please use the chat box located at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask a question, and we have someone monitoring those questions, so we'll try to get those to you and unmute you to allow you to answer your question live, or if you'd rather just type it in, then we will get that and read it aloud. There's no video view of the participants here in the room or online, so we're just going to have the slideshow that will be available that you will view. And just as a reminder, this is being recorded so that we can share this at other times and allow others to be able to view it if they aren't able to attend tonight. Okay, go ahead. All right, so just an introduction. My name is Lori Adams with Adams Ashby Group. With me is Chris Lockhart. We provide support to the city of Colfax for the implementation of programs and projects connected to grant funding in the city. And the COVID Subsistence Payment Program is the first program to be offered by the city through the funding provided under the CDBG program and the CARES Act, which is also known as CDBG CV1. Our objective for these funds is to assist residents living within the city limits of Colfax that meet the low to moderate income household criteria, and that's based on family size and income, and who have been directly impacted due to the coronavirus pandemic. And we're going to help them by providing some utility assistance to prevent evictions or cutoffs of utility services. And then just as an expansion to that, if you've been impacted at all and had any financial impact, we are able to assist you. So you don't need to be in a cutoff situation to be eligible. So I'll just make that clear because that's a little confusing when you just read that statement. The utilities that are covered under the program are going to be the water, the sewer, your garbage, your propane service, if you receive that, electric, and internet. Let's jump right into the program requirements. So the requirements are met based on the household size and the number of persons in your family or unit. That is provided a little bit later on in the presentation, and we'll outline that directly. Payments can only be provided if you had a loss starting at February 1st, 2020. So from February 1st, 2020 to current, if you have had an impact, you may be eligible. You must provide evidence of loss of income. And where this gets a little tricky is if you did receive unemployment benefits and you had the additional stipend, sometimes that actually increased your income rather than reduce your income. And in that situation, you would not be eligible. We can only assist 3 consecutive months of payment at this time. So we will be able to provide currently your next 3 months payments for any of those utilities. You must submit a complete application with all required documents to prove income and all the statements that you are confirming in order to receive benefits. And so that's something that we're going to be reviewing in detail this evening. You must list all benefits that you've received and how they were used. This is required because the federal government has what they call duplicative benefit processes that we have to ensure we review. So if you received a benefit from a refund from your insurance company, then you would want to list that because that is a benefit that you received, and you would list that amount and then how you use that. The key here is that we don't want to have overlapping benefits for the same service. So we just have to show that you did use those in other ways. The home that you're living in, that you're claiming the utilities for, must be your primary residence, and you must have a connection, a lease agreement, a mortgage, something in your name Where this gets a little tricky is if the lease is in one name and then your utilities have various names on them. So there's a little bit of work that we need to do to make sure that we can show the connection to that primary resident for those household members. That's achieved, through you getting mail there or providing information to us showing that that is your primary residence or your driver's license residence has that address on it. So there's ways that we can do that, but it's just we have to make sure that there's a clear connection there. And the maximum grant benefit that you are able to receive for the 3 months of assistance is up to $5,000. And all payments are made directly to the utility. We cannot make any direct payments to the individuals of the household. Okay. All right. So these are our income limits. It is based on a county-wide area. So, and these are effective as of July 1. So they're the most current income limits. So you are simply going to find the number of people in your household and then drop down to the income. And that is the maximum income that's allowed for the household. When we talk about maximum income, we're talking about all individuals that are 18 years or older that are employed, and collectively what everyone makes cannot exceed that amount based on your adjusted gross income. That can be taken from your taxes. If you don't have taxes, some people don't file taxes, then we would utilize your paycheck stubs and bank statements and things of that nature in order to make that evidence available to prove your income. So there's always a way to do that. So if you're right on the cusp of this, don't think that you won't qualify. If you're close to this number, then it's definitely worth filling out the information and then having us review that preliminarily to see if it's going to make it or not. There are some items through the CDBG program and HCD. Some things are excluded income. So let me just give you a few examples of those. You may fall in that category. If you have an adopted child or you are a foster care provider, those income items that you receive for those individuals are not included as income. So that's something that's really important. You may have an income coming in for those as payments, but that is actually not counted as income. If you are a full-time college student, then there's a reduction in what we count for your income, as well as if you receive financial aid, that is also not counted as income. So those are just a few items that you can keep in mind that if you just do the quick math in your head and you think you receive too much money, there are some exclusions. So if you are close to this number, let's talk about that. All right, go ahead. Is there any questions that have come up online in regards to income? No? Okay. All righty, so let's talk about the application. The application is an important piece of this process. The city in this is receiving these funds from the Community Development Block Grant Program and will also be audited as a part of the process. And in order to ensure that we don't make any fatal errors, and what I call a fatal error is funding someone who doesn't actually truly meet the requirements, that will then trigger the city to have to pay back those funds. We do have a rigorous application process to make sure that we document everything according to the federal regulations. So for access to the program, everyone must submit a completed application. That includes a signed application with all attachments. Those attachments are the duplication of benefits form, a principal self-residency form, a certification of zero income, and that means if someone in the home does not receive income, yet they're 18 years or older, this is the form they would complete to has evidence that they don't have an income. We're going to need your employment information and then also a release of information form, just in case we do have to reach out to someone to get additional information. We need a copy of a valid driver's license or identification card for every member that's 18 years or older, and then with a current address. And we know sometimes current addresses aren't on driver's license. I think I'm probably the biggest violator of that. But we just need something that shows that that is your current address. Pay stub showing your employment status on or before February 1st, 2020. So that's a paycheck stub or some evidence that you had employment at that time with a employer. And it may be that you got laid off already, and that's fine. We would just need your EDD statement for that period. Current pay stub or any other payment reference. A statement from your employer related to a layoff, termination, or other impacts due to COVID. Now, this is where things start to get a little messy because it's always not that clear in certain situations. Employers, you may have just shown up one day and they said, don't come back, or you got a message on your phone, so you may not have anything in writing that defines this date. That's when we would use that release of information. We'd reach out to that employer and just have them verify that on a form that we would provide them. So if you don't have something, that's okay. Just let us know how you were informed, and then we'll work with you to reach out to get that clarified. We're going to need a copy of your most recent tax return. If you filed separately, then we need a copy for each member. And that's, again, just to verify income. Documentation of all income for household members. For example, if it's unemployment, Social Security letter, disability, pensions, alimony, child support. So things that you bring income in, we just need a reference for that and a copy of evidence of what that amount is. And then the following document must be attached to the application. And that is the statement from your utility provider for the past 3 months. So we just need to see that you've had service and what those costs were. We do have some, if you are behind already and you are in a situation that you need us to make those payments and catch you up, we need to see that evidence, and we can make a payment if you're past due 3 months, or we would make the past due payment plus any future payments up to 3 months. So we just need evidence of those documents, and for each provider that you would like us to provide that payment for. Okay, go ahead. All right, so I'm going to walk through the application with you. Were there any questions that we needed to answer? Okay, are you just going to raise your hand if you get one? All right, I'm hopeful. So the application is pretty self-explanatory, and when you receive it via email, it is a fillable form. So you would just click on the boxes and be able to fill it in. If you get a hard copy, then just write it in. Just make sure that it's as legible as possible, as we do have to review these. If you need assistance filling the application out, then you're just going to let us know here at City Hall, and then we can make arrangements to give you that assistance. So names, and you're going to print that at the top with the residential address, and then the phone number and email address with the amount that you are requesting. You're going to make payment on behalf to, and then this is where you're going to list those utilities that you are hoping to have us provide service or payment to. If there's more than is available on here, then you would just put those on the back for us. You're going to make some confirmations for us. One is regarding the duplication of benefits form, and it's a simple question of, have you received or are you aware of being eligible to receive from another source any financial assistance for the costs listed above, and what the total amount would be that you've received, and if it exceeded those costs. So this is a yes or no answer. So this is where it's really important that you fill out the duplications of benefit form, because we all received money. We all had tax funds that came in through the federal government. There's other funding sources that have been available to individuals. So if you have received any of those, they need to be listed on a duplicative form, and then you would identify here that yes, you have received them, and that the total amount that you need exceeded what those costs were. COVID-19 impact, here's where you're going to make a statement in regards to, have you had work hours reduced, been temporarily or permanently laid off, or other losses due to the COVID-19 situation. So this is where you're going to provide that. What we do ask is that you include a statement here as to what those were. If you need to provide something on a separate piece of paper and write that out, please do so and just attach it to the application. We do like to see a little bit of an estimate of what you believe your percent of revenue that you lost for the year was. This is set on percentage basis. If you know that on a dollar amount base, then you're welcome to put that in as well. And then we're subsistence emergency status. Have you received a late payment due, eviction notice, or other proof that the loss of housing or essential utility service is at risk? And this is something that we would like to know if that has happened, and then how many months that you were unable to pay. Next slide. Now, this is where you're going to provide us some additional information on the persons that are living in the household. And so you're going to list their names, their ages, head of household, so that one person will be marked as head of household. If you have a co-head of household, that person would be marked there. And then if they're a full-time student or older, you would check that if it's applicable. And then any other household member just would be listed. And again, if you have additional information, just flip that over and provide it on the back. If you're doing electronically, then just add a separate piece of paper. And then you're going to include the annual gross income and the source of that income on this form. And then below, we've just provided a quick reference for the information on number of persons in the household and the maximum income that you would want to fall in. And then a simple, are you lower or higher? And that lets us know how close you are to meeting that high amount there, and whether or not we just at a quick glance think that you qualify or not. On this section, this is a section that we ask you to complete. This is optional, and this is regarding your ethnicity and race criteria. Through the federal government, we do collect this data and track this data in order to ensure that we are providing appropriate outreach for any protected class. And also, it lets us know if we need to be considering any other languages for this information. And then you're going to certify that the information that you are providing is true and accurate, and that to the best of your knowledge, and that you understand that this is being signed under the penalty of perjury. You're going to then submit that document with the rest of the application items that we're going to review. So next page. All right, this is a sample of the duplicative benefits form. And this is just kind of how you would fill that out. And we've included insurance refund and the EDD awards on this. It's just kind of a reminder of some of the things that you would have received. This gives us just a quick example, though. You're just going to list the name or organization that you received the funding from, the contact person. If you have a phone number or email of that contact person, that's very helpful. The amount that you received, and then what the purpose of the funds were for and how you used that, and then the date that those funds were awarded. And again, as much as you can fill this out is the better, because it is really important that we vet this out. We are responsible to ensure that we have asked you the appropriate questions related to duplication of funding. Okay, next slide. Principal self-residency or principal residency self-certification. And this again is just certifying that the home that you are participating with is your principal residency, and you understand those requirements are for the program. And you're just going to sign this form. Okay, we spoke about the zero income certification. So that's what this looks like, or this is what that looks like. It's just going to be, again, the name, the address, and those are the items that you're certifying to, and then there's a signature at the bottom. And there we go. And okay, that's fine. Alrighty, so this slide here is about the employment information that we're requesting. So this is a item where you're going to actually provide us the information on your employer. So it's going to be their name, their address, the phone, the years that you were employed, the position you have, and your supervisor's name. And then we've provided you a section to be completed that will include that you have had a reduction in salary and a statement around that and how that has impacted you for each of your employers. Okay. Alrighty, so here is a release of information form that we have provided. So each adult member of the household would need to be completing this with at the top of the form where they would enter their name, and then you would sign it and provide your social security number if you have one and date. And the co-applicant and any other adult member would also sign this. And just as a reference, a social security number is not required to participate, but it is an identifier that an employer would use. So if you do have another ID number, if you could provide that, that would be helpful. All right. So next steps. So once you've submitted your application with all of the documentation that we've requested, and the application that we send you does have a little checklist for you, just so that you don't miss anything. You're going to submit that to us. So this goes back a little bit farther in the next step. We do need you to register. So if you haven't registered yet and you are interested, you can go online and register, or you can come into City Hall and register. You can find it both on the city website as well as on the social media pages of the city to find that link for registration. Once you've registered and you've obtained an application, you're going to complete the application and submit it. You're going to provide us all the documentation that we've outlined. And then we're going to review those applications and documents to make sure that we have everything that we need to have a completed application. And we're going to work with you. So if you do submit the application and it's not completed, then we're going to let you know the additional items that you'll need to provide us in order to make that application complete. Once we've approved the application, we're going to provide you a letter letting you know that it was approved, and a grant agreement will be issued that will be signed and returned to the city prior to any payments being made. Once we have those, then payments will be made on your behalf to the approved vendors up to a maximum of $5,000, and applications will be approved until funding is exhausted or the program is modified based on the terms of the grants, because there is a time limit that we have to expend these funds. So it's really important that if you are interested, that you do get your applications in, because if we don't have enough applications, then the program can be modified in order to try to find more persons that we are able to assist, or the funds will expire and we'll have to return them. Okay. All righty. Any questions? Any questions from anyone here that maybe something that I didn't make clear?
There was a question brought up this morning where you attended the chamber meeting, and you have the combined household, right? Maybe you have people renting rooms and such. All of that is a verification that's needed, right? So if you have multiple people living there, is it separate applications for each of them, or is it a combined application depending on whether or not it's their primary dwelling, but yet they're not with the other resident?
Right. And those things start to get a little tricky. So that's a really good question. It's really important to ensure that when you have that type of a living situation, that you have things in writing around that, and it's not just a verbal agreement, because that is where it becomes difficult for us to provide assistance. We do need to have some sort of a paper trail that shows that obligation. And that's where I was making the statement where you have somebody who leases the actual unit, but then the utilities are in individuals' names because they're taking care of those utilities, and then as part of their agreement to live there. So we might not be able to help some of those individual cases. Where it also gets tricky is when you have potentially a parent or a relative and you're living with them and maybe renting a room and paying for the PG&E. You want to make sure that there's some sort of an agreement in place around that, and then we could potentially assist in that situation. So those are kind of a case-by-case basis. When it's not pretty straight and clear cut, you have a lease, you have an apartment with a lease, and then you have your water or your electrical utilities, and the names all match. That's a pretty straightforward process. So when there are complicated living arrangements, definitely reach out to us and let's see if we can connect those dots. If we do have some things in place that does allow the connection of the dots, then as long as we can document it thoroughly enough, then we can assist.
Great. Another question that I've heard is, let's say you're not behind on your utility bills. Would you qualify for future utility bills being paid then at that point? You do qualify. Great question. Yep. So it's not just about being behind or having outstanding bills due. If you have a financial reduction in that period due to COVID, then you are eligible for 3 months payments on your utilities.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a program that's worthwhile. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to be behind. You just have to be impacted. This is there to help bridge that gap because there is a financial loss. You had a financial loss. Another one that I want to make clear is if you say had COVID and you were out, or someone in your family had COVID and you had to take vacation or sick leave to assist them, that is a financial impact. You've lost that benefit due to COVID. So we can utilize that as well. Again, it's just about making sure we can document it and that you have the appropriate documents to allow us to do that. That is a reduction, yes. Yeah, if you can show that previous to COVID, you had an overtime clock that pushed you up to 50, 60, 70 hours of overtime every year, and this year you had 0 overtime, and then you had, say you had your EDD and you had that stipend, but because the overtime was such a large part of your income, we can show a reduction based on that. So that's a really good question. Yeah.
Customers weren't able to come.
Yeah, that would be shown through paycheck stubs, and we would be able to show the loss of the tips, because a lot of those organizations went to DoorDash or delivery service, so those tips did reduce. So that is definitely an impact that we could show. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct.
People who work in industries like the DoorDash, Uber, they were impacted by COVID. So of course they lost them. But also people like musicians that normally play.
Yes, the gig worker. Correct. That is correct. Gig workers are eligible, even though that I know EDD did open up to providing them some assistance. As long as you can show a reduction in income, it would be ineligible. As long as the entire family's household met the requirements, it would be eligible, yes. Yep. All right.
Well, thank you, Lori. Again, we're recording this. We're going to post it live. We'll put it on the city website and link it out. Probably on Facebook Live as well too, for everyone to see. Don't hesitate to reach out to City Hall and or Lori Adams directly for assistance for this program.
And actually, let's just go ahead and give them the email address. It's online, but also accounting at colfax-ca.gov. And the staff will make sure that I get those emails and we'll answer those questions. Share this with your family members. Again, if someone lives within the city limits of the city of Colfax, and based on household size is at or below the income that has been provided this evening is also online. Make sure they register and let's see if you qualify. We have this money available. If we don't use it, we're going to send it back. We would rather see it benefit the community members because it is something that was made available to you by taxpayers' dollars. So let's get it back into your community.